Thanks for joining for the introduction episode of the Books Brothers podcast, where each week we read, discuss, and share with the hope of becoming better men. My name is Adam, and 5 friends and I started a book club a year and a half ago. Like many guys, we had become disconnected from male friendships and were facing new life challenges. We initially started our book club to stay connected, but through the process, we each have experienced growth as individuals and been challenged to be better men by each other. We all like the idea of how this concept could help others, and as a result, we decided to share our book club in the form of a podcast. Since today is our introduction episode, we are going to introduce everyone involved in the podcast, share the origin story of our book club, explain why we are making our book club into the Books Brothers podcast, and tell listeners what you can expect each week when you listen in. And now, a word from our sponsors.
This week's podcast is sponsored by Downward Dog Dairy Company, introducing their new chocolate dingle yogurt with brown berries. It's a great way to promote digestion with healthy live cultures and gut bacteria.
That's great.
That's one. You want to do another one?
Thanks to Downward Dog Dairy Company. I appreciate that.
Did I just hear Wolf bark in the background?
No, that's Nova. That's perfect.
Okay. I thought I heard a dog bark. So yeah, we want to start today with just going around and doing introductions, so you can get a chance to meet everyone who's going to be a part of the podcast, and we'll talk a little about who we are and how we know each other. Adam, why don't you lead off with us?
Yeah, my name is Adam Flessner, master's degree in exercise physiology, former strength and conditioning coach and exercise physiologist, and elite level powerlifter.
Elite. We're in a Zoom call for work right now.
Really? I would never say that for work. That's so annoying. No, but that's, fitness junkie, kind of done all kinds of stuff. Glad to be here to kind of get our group together of college friends. As an awesome way to keep up. We're not only keeping up and laughing together, but learning together and growing together. And over the last year or so we've been doing this, I've seen all of us kind of improve in our just daily lives, and career and relationships. And this has been a really helpful way for me to stay connected to, other men, which is extremely important for as you get older and kind of, nowadays, it's kind of hard to stay connected. Everybody's kind of on their phones a lot more, and we kind of need to realize the importance of connection, and especially for us men. But it's been extremely helpful for me as well, just as a way to kind of climb out of some lows that I had hit when I was, a few years ago. And, all the research shows that just happiness is the main thing, is having connection. And so this is a really good way to have that. And our goal is to basically show the benefits of that and reading and blah, 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 blah. Elevator music.
All right, Robbie.
What is up, boys? It's Robb Rosinski here. Live in Kansas City, Missouri. Go Chiefs. Originally from Omaha, Nebraska. Met all these hooligans back at Missouri State University, 14 years ago? It's been 10 years since we've graduated college coming up. So time flies by. Just a little bit about myself. So recently married, coming up on a year here, actually, to my talented bride, Marianne. We have a husky together, an old boy named Wolf. Took a little bit of a hiatus from the book club, just kind of getting ready, trying to kill the boy as I become a man to be a husband. So really just wanted to sink my teeth into that. And so I'm excited to be back. This will be my 3rd book with the guys. So really looking forward to that. Some things that I enjoy doing in my free time is chasing adventure, playing golf anytime I can get out. I'm a happy guy if I'm on the course. Typically it ends in sadness because, the game of golf, it's a hard game. Unlike Flesner or Adam Flessner, I am not an Olympic powerlifter. I really only enjoy doing chest and buys. So you can count on me for that.
At least you're honest with yourself.
Yes. And I enjoy cooking, and I am on the pursuit to find the best IPA in the world. So I enjoy cracking into some IPAs. I work for a Swiss chocolate company, managing a portion of their logistics. But similar to what Adam was sharing, relationships are what matters most, right? I think in my 10 years out of college, you know, chase the next job, chase the next move, chase what the job can provide for you. But at the end of the day, relationships, connection, personal growth, spiritual growth, those things matter the most. And so that is what I try to fill my time up with these days. Reading for me has been hot and cold at times. I think sometimes it's daunting because with my free time, reading is not always been first choice. But when you get into a book, something that you love, it gets fun to get lost in something. So I hope y'all take it up on us and get lost with us.
All right. And Thomas, if you want to share for a second then.
All right. So hello world. My name is Thomas. I was lucky enough to spend a ton of time with these guys in college. I did a lot of hanging out with the bros when I probably should have been studying, which I don't regret that at all. But in college, these guys really elevated the standards I had for myself, and I think really set me up to be confident and motivated after school. Little background about the arc of our friendship here between me and these guys. Post-college, I went from having a ton of social interaction with these guys and living with them most of my time in college, to spending the first couple years traveling around for my career, which ended up being good for my career, but a pretty lonely thing for me to do. So there was a big contrast between my social life in college and then directly after. It was beneficial for me in some ways. And in 2016, I got lucky and my company offered to move me to Honolulu. So naturally, my wife and I have been there ever since. But during those lonely years after college, I do remember wanting to reach out to these guys and chat and catch up, but there was always kind of something that kept me from doing that most of the time. It might have been time zone differences, or maybe feeling weird about reaching out to other people more than they reached out to me, or maybe embarrassed I wasn't globetrotting in Lambos and traveling on private jets at 24 years old. I seem to keep in touch with these guys less and less after college. But more recently, over the past couple of years, they were among the only people in my life I felt safe sharing my true thoughts and feelings about the world with, and bouncing off different ideas because I trusted them. And, you know, that's something I really wish I would have had during those first couple of years out of school. I hope this podcast will encourage guys, especially that age, late teens, early mid-20s, to try to reach out to some of their friends more often that are guys or mentors. Overall, I would say I'm a, pretty goofy, outgoing fella on the outside, but I definitely respect the power of words and the impact they can have on people. I kind of had mixed feelings about doing a podcast, actually. I had a little bit of reservations about, throwing my opinions out there maybe on such a big platform. I tend to wrestle with a lot of philosophical thoughts about things, and I like to talk to people about those things. But, being on the record means you feel like maybe sometimes you can't change your mind, which, I mean, that's a me problem, not a podcast problem. But I see the potential, though. I'm excited for this podcast because at the end of the day, I thought, these are all normal thoughts, normal feelings for any human being to have. And the worst thing we can all do is to silo off all of our perspectives and not share them and grow. So I'm excited about it. I think the ratio of how much I produce versus how much I consume has been something that I've thought about a lot over the last few years. And I think culturally we are on the extreme end at this point of consumption rather than producing things for ourselves. And I think that's one of the reasons the world's pretty addicted to consuming in excess, is because it just it's a snowball. The more you do it, the more you want to, and the less that you are maybe in a zone of creativity or production for other people and for the world, So I would say, in addition to connecting and learning and consuming information from a book together, this podcast gives us a chance to balance that out by producing something for others to hear and think about. And I'm excited to see what kind of impact that could have.
Good job, Thomas.
Garrett.
He's pulling out his one page. He's pulling out his 1 page edited MLA document that he has prepared for this moment.
MLA? Oh my gosh, that's taking it back.
Man,
What are you trying to say, Rob? I don't understand.
That you're organized.
I try to be. No, I actually did not prepare any thoughts. I did send kind of a sample outline for tonight, though, to Stehlin a couple days ago. Name's Garrett. Do not live in Kansas City, but I'm originally from Kansas City. I actually knew Matt, I think since junior high. So have known him. Good grief. Is it weird to say 20 years? That doesn't even
Very
seem
weird
real.
to say. But yeah, that's
20 years. So I've known some folks even longer. Some of these guys even longer than college. So live in Oklahoma City now with my wife and 2 boys. Have a 3.5-year-old and almost a 1.5-year-old. He's 17 months as of yesterday. So my wife and I, we've moved around. We've been married almost 10 years. We've lived in 2 countries, 4 cities, technically 3 cities, but we've lived in Oklahoma City twice. So we've moved out of state and then back in. So I feel like that kind of counts. And I got reconnected. It was actually at Robb's bachelor party when, got to see all these guys. And Stehlin told me about this book club. And at the time was in between, I was transitioning a lot of life. We had just had our second child. We were about to move back to Oklahoma City for my wife to start her new job, the next stage in her career. So I was, in a lot of transition, leaving the church we were at, saying goodbye to a lot of friendships, thinking through, the process of starting new friendships again in Oklahoma City. And I've just really learned, and, if I ever took it for granted, I don't now, the value of like a lot of the friendships and the bonding that takes place over college. When you live together, whether it's in the fraternity house, a lot of you guys are roommates. Matt and I were roommates at one point. Just there's a lot of life that happens in close proximity. And when you can reconnect over a bachelor party, when you haven't seen several guys in a few years, it's like instantaneous. And Stehlin invited me to join, and I've been very grateful for that invitation and so glad to be part of this. I think on like the reading side of this, I've super enjoyed just the cadence and the habit starting of reading. A year ago, I probably would have told you I didn't have a ton of time to read, and it was a stretch for me to read 50 pages about what we read on average per week. And I feel like, no joke, I have read more books, including a couple audiobooks in the last year than I probably have in the past 5 to 10 years combined. And that's not even an exaggeration. So
that's good. It's
been great for me to get back in that rhythm. But then like what other folks, I don't know why I keep saying folks, what other guys have shared, just the cadence of a regular connection with other men who I know well and have gotten to reconnect and get to know even better. It's also been good to walk through life as we're all similar age in, different stages in our career, but at the same time, like realizing that we might have different jobs, different titles, different experiences. We literally live all around the country from Hawaii to St. Louis and everywhere in between. Yet some of the insecurities we deal with, some of the fears, some of the challenges, and the successes are all very similar. And when you're able to share that and be vulnerable with other guys and be encouraged and challenged by other men, it's really, selfishly, it's amazing. And so I think that benefit goes both ways with this entire group. And so that's what I've been most grateful for and excited about continuing year 2 of being part of this book club.
I think folks is a very gender neutral term in this day and age.
So hip.
So it is appropriate. Well, I'm Matt. I also live in Kansas City, Missouri. Born and raised here. I've barely even moved away except for college, which is kind of sad to think about. I have been married to my lovely wife, Emily, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, 4.5 and 2.5, both girls. So I'm a girl dad. They're a lot of fun. Right now they're super into Frozen. So all day, every day is just them either singing or listening to Frozen songs. And if you know me, I'm very particular about my music. And it's terrible. I hate it. But I love the girl.
What's terrible, the singing or the song itself? Or both?
All of it. Oh. I was always hopeful, just kind of wishing that my kids would have been like these prodigy singers. Not the case.
Not yet.
Not even
time. Give them some
not
time.
even close. Yeah, but
it's
they're
like
great.
the Jesus vintage film videos. There is no hope.
Yeah, they're great though. I work from home. I'm a project manager, and it's actually a new role for me. About 3 months I've been in this role, but previously in account management within the IT healthcare space since college. Like Garrett said, I've lived with everyone here. Besides Garrett, we lived in a house called the Pentagon our junior year, and it was fantastic. Best year of college, the most crazy in several ways because of busyness and just ridiculousness.
Literalness.
Yeah. Lived with Garrett. You probably know, but I hated living with you, Garrett.
You did?
You're a great friend, but I did not like living with you.
In the house?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that. What did I do?
Just the way you lived, man.
Wait, who had
what?
Who had the saran wrap and who had the leaves?
You're loud.
I had the leaves.
I don't even know what is going on right now.
Yeah.
I have so
Anyways.
much to learn.
We can talk about that later, but
That's funny.
so we're all pretty close in college, but then I'm really bad at keeping up with people, especially if we're not in the same city. And even now, if we are in the same city, I'm still pretty bad at it. So after college, I feel like I didn't do a good job of staying in touch with any of you guys. And that's one of my big regrets. So when Stehlin asked me to join the book club, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. A way to connect with everyone again, even though we are almost all in different cities. Having a regular cadence to meet with you guys is amazing, and it's been really great to reconnect. I'm also a huge nerd, and I read all the time. I read at least 30 minutes a night right before I go to bed. It's usually fantasy books like Lord of the Rings and The Wheel of Time, which I have right here. But yeah, I also enjoy the type of books that we're going through. So having a book club with close friends is a great way to connect and read. And yeah, for me, it's been really motivational and inspirational in several different aspects of my life, just mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally. I think I've grown in all of those areas since I joined the book club about a year and a half ago. I'm not quite as much as of a fitness nerd as all of you bros, but I try when I can. Kids makes it a little bit harder to find the time to do that. But yeah, it's really great. I'm excited to get to our next book and record.
And as I mentioned before, my name is Adam, Adam Stehlin. I go by Stehlin in this group. Adam Flesher goes by Flez, just to keep things simple. I've known Adam since we were in high school together, similar to how Garrett and Matt knew each other for a while. But as others have mentioned,
middle school, bro. What are you talking about?
Middle school, that's right.
You come on, bro.
Frosted tips. Yeah, that's
Seventh grade.
We became friends in high school, we'll say. But yeah, so went to college with everyone else here at Missouri State, and after graduating from physical therapy school, my wife and I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. My wife Ruth and I have been married for 8 years now. We've got a 10-week-old right now who's probably crying in the room right now. We moved to Phoenix shortly after I finished school, just to get a chance to adventure a little bit more. Myself and Ruth both love hiking and the outdoors. I've gotten really into long distance running since I've been out here. I work, as I mentioned, I went to school for physical therapy, but I actually just as of yesterday am leaving the field to work with a medical technology company. So that's an exciting time with some transition going on with that and a newborn. As the guys have mentioned, we started this book club about a year and a half ago. It was Adam and Robb and me and Thomas that were the initial individuals that started it. We started it because we really wanted a way to connect more often. A few of us were just going through some life stresses, some, whether it be relational conflict or work stresses, that we really wanted to connect on a more regular basis and be really intentional about being friends and living life together and growing together. I've loved books for several years, and reading books with this group has been a really cool way to, as other guys have mentioned, just be challenged to grow with your work and be challenged to be a better husband, to be a better father, to be a better spiritual leader, to be more healthy. And so for me, this has just been really an awesome experience to get to connect with the guys and become a better man, I would hope, through the process. Yeah, so that's a little bit why we started the podcast and who we are. Next, we're going to go a little bit into some of the books that we've gone through in the past and what you as a listener can expect to with some of the books that we're going to go through. Maybe, Garrett, if you can share a little bit about some of the books we've read in the past.
Absolutely. We've read Do Hard Things. I think that was the first book that I joined in on that took a different approach to what toughness actually looks like from some of the stereotypical, Bobby Knight, scream, make people puke. That's the definition of toughness, to reevaluating kind of what that actually looks like and how we can develop toughness into our everyday lives. So that was really beneficial. Sun Tzu Says, AKA The Art of War, which we had varying opinions on, but again, that's what's fun about this book club, is the variety of the books that we read. So learned about Chinese general's approach to war about 4,000 years ago. And then one of the most, I would just say fun, couldn't put it down kind of books, The River of Doubt. It was a story of Teddy Roosevelt when he lost his re-election, but he was going for a third term, or he was going for another term in a different party, and he lost. And he's dealt with depression in his life, whether it was losing a wife or I think he may have lost a child, even by going and doing very difficult life adventures, whether it was hunting in the Dakotas or just going out into the woods, forest, and just wilderness survival out in Vermont, I think, or in the Northeast. He decided, hey, let's just go on a river that no human being has ever successfully traversed before. Let's see if we can do that. And just the literal life and death situations, the psychology of just even going on something a trek like that, and then the interpersonal dynamics of the group. Just a really fascinating book. The author actually lives in Kansas City, We tried to get a hold of her when we first started doing this. I think that was some of the first thoughts of like, what if we did a podcast, right? Like we could have like the authors on as a guest. Those were a few. The most recent one we did to kind of wrap this segment up, we read Shoe Dog, which is a memoir of Phil Knight starting Nike. It's a book that the founders of where I work now really advocate and talk a lot about, being influential to them. And so it's just fascinated me. And so I wanted to read it. That was another book I couldn't put down. It wasn't necessarily, in my opinion, and I think I speak for the guys, it wasn't the most like book club conversational of some of the books that we've read, but just in terms of me working in consumer products and international manufacturing and retail, logistics, supply chain. It was, negotiating. It was a book I could not put down, and being part of a smaller company that's starting to grow, it was really fun. So we've kind of across the board, from war to starting a company to toughness to survival. We've kind of hit the gamut. And then, even Stoicism philosophy, the fifth book, I knew there was one I was forgetting, is Discipline is Destiny, and just being a disciplined person and the trajectory that can set, the little things in your everyday life, how that can set your day, your week, your month, your future out for the best possible course. So we've kind of hit, doing that recap, we've really hit a wide variety, like kind of like a shotgun approach of just kind of all around. It's well done. I don't think we planned that at all, but that's a fun little variety of books right there.
Yeah, one of my favorite books that we did, I don't know, Stehlin, if you were going to talk about it, but right before you joined, Garrett, we did Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And that was one of the most incredible books I've ever read in my whole life.
Because he's a Holocaust survivor, right?
Was dope.
Yeah. He is Austrian.
I was just going to say The Comfort Crisis was really good. Michael Easter.
Yeah.
Just embracing discomfort, doing crazy things.
Yeah, so we've tried to get a variety of books that we've gone through, and so you've heard a little bit about it from us in this conversation, but we're going to talk a little more next about why we're wanting to share this as a podcast with you all. This is something, as you can hear, has been really influential and beneficial for our lives. So, any of you guys want to speak to why we've basically decided to turn our book club into the Books Brothers podcast?
I can just say a little like sneak preview. We are doing the mask sneak preview. We're doing the Mask of Masculinity. And on the title, it says how men can embrace vulnerability, create strong relationships, and live their lives to the fullest. I think one of the things that we want to do with the podcast is really embrace vulnerability. Typically, when we get on these calls and we talk about the books, like there's a lot of good segue conversations from the books that kind of weave into our personal lives and allow us to really open up about things that have gone on in our past, things that we're currently dealing with, ways in which we've grown. And, a real man is a vulnerable man who can share, who can teach, who can lead. And so we think that really, honestly, this next book with the title kind of sums it up in general, right? Like we want to build strong relationships. Yeah. We want to live our lives to the fullest. We want to, be the best version of ourselves so that we can really fulfill all of the hats that we wear in our lives, whether that's a friend, a brother, a son, a father, right? All of those things will allow us to ultimately integrate into society and have, an outstanding impact.
Matt, go for it. I insist.
Because Flez puts out content that needs to be shared.
Oh, goodness.
Or at least he's single, ladies.
Yeah, I think just talking with each other on a week-to-week basis and going through these motivational books has really helped us individually as men and also to stay connected. There's a lot of really good real talk in our conversations. There's a lot of jokes also. Yeah, we just thought if anyone else is out there feeling lonely or disconnected from people, if they come across this podcast, hopefully this will give them some inspiration to reconnect with some old friends, maybe read some books, reflect on those books, and try to become better in one way or another, whether that's being there for somebody or being inspired to go on a run or, go work out for the first time in 10 years or whatever it may be.
I think as a group, we can agree this podcast is geared towards young men who are looking for guidance. A lot of the mainstream content is pretty limited at this point, in my eyes, to being motivation-y or a little too self-helpy or overly macho, maybe. And I hope this type of a forum and this type of discussion that we're going to have in this podcast provides the younger bros with a more real and down-to-earth conversation and turns them on to the real benefits of reading, reflecting, connecting with their fellow bros more. However, I would say also, if you don't fall within the young men demographic, I would still encourage people to think about how they may have a connection with someone who does. This podcast might expand your understanding of them, provide you with interesting topics of conversation that are relevant to their lives. And, why not get out of your own comfortable silo of unquestioned perspective and thought and give the podcast a listen.
Definitely. I think the idea is that, we were helping to be a part of developing a community in which men see the strength to reach out, the strength to build friendships, and trying to really model the behavior of what manhood looks like. To further expand on what Matt and Thomas are talking about there, so what you can expect as a listener each week is we're going to share a section of reading that we're going to go through. We're going to then that next week we'll chat through and have some discussion questions based upon the reading of that individual book. And then a lot of times that just leads to conversation, discussion about our lives that you're probably also dealing with yourself. As we've had these conversations, we find as men, we're a lot of times dealing with the same conflicts, the same stresses in our life. And so our hope as a listener is that you would essentially read along with us, that you would read each week with us and join in the conversation. We'll share a little bit ways about how you can do that at the end of the episode. Let's go to a commercial break here next before we close up today's episode.
Are you tired of getting your hair messed up the moment you leave the house? Or what about those annoying friends that always want to cramp your hairstyle? Now introducing Hair Bubble. Hair Bubble is a translucent bubble that is worn around your head to protect your hair from the elements and from turd friends. Why risk it when you can bubble it?
Turd friends.
Dang, I would buy that.
Risk it when you can bubble it.
I like that.
Last thing we wanted to discuss on the podcast today is what book we're reading. So as Robb mentioned, we're going to be going through The Mask of Masculinity. It's by Lewis Howes. Garrett, can you share a little bit about kind of the reading plan for this book, what a listener can expect with the next episode with us?
Sure. With every book, we typically read a chapter or two each week, then meet and discuss. We'll share at the end of each episode what we plan to read for the following week so you can be sure to follow along. For next week, we will read the preface, the introduction chapter, and the first mask, the Stoic Mask. In total, we'll cover about 50 pages. Once again, the book is The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes, How Men Can Embrace Vulnerability, Create Strong Relationships, and Live Their Fullest Lives. We'll include the chapters and post a link in the episode show notes to purchase the book on Amazon, as well as a link to find your local library. If you don't have your library card yet, this is a great excuse to get one. Whether you borrow it or buy it, we hope you read The Mask of Masculinity with us. Again, for next week, we'll discuss the preface, the introduction, and the first mask, the Stoic Mask. That wraps up our episode for the Books Brothers podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't yet, buy or borrow the book we're going through and follow along with us. Please subscribe and give us a review. We would really appreciate it. Also, please consider sharing this podcast with a friend or family member who you think would get something out of it. Finally, we'd love to hear from you. If you were challenged by our conversation or have any questions or feedback, email us at connect@booksbrotherspodcast.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Until then, read, reflect, and connect.